There are moments in life, seemingly ordinary, that tear the fabric of what we believe to be true, unraveling the very threads of our existence. Imagine a life built on solid ground, a foundation of love and shared history, only for a single, unassuming detail to shatter it all. This isn't just a story. It's a chilling whisper from the shadows, a secret so profound it could redefine an entire family's past, present, and future. Our journey begins with the Averys, a name that, until recently, symbolized stability and quiet contentment in the leafy suburbs of Connecticut. Elias and Sarah Avery, a couple who had navigated nearly 3 decades of marriage, epitomized the American dream. Elias, a man whose hands bore the subtle calluses of a successful architect, possessed a quiet strength, a comforting presence that grounded their family. Sarah, with her cascade of silvering blonde hair and eyes that still sparkled with youthful mischief, was the vibrant heart of their home, a beloved kindergarten teacher whose warmth touched countless lives. They were pillars of their community, active in local charities, their evenings often filled with the laughter of friends or the quiet hum of a shared movie. Their pride and joy, their only child, was a young man named Michael. Michael, at 28, was everything a parent could wish for. Tall, with Elias's broad shoulders and Sarah's engaging smile, he was a budding software engineer, bright, ambitious, and utterly devoted to his parents. He'd recently celebrated a promotion at a tech firm in Boston, a testament to his intelligence and tireless work ethic. From childhood, Michael had been a beacon of curiosity, his mind always buzzing with questions, his spirit eager to explore the world. He was the kind of son who still called his mother every Sunday, who remembered his father's favorite brand of coffee. Their bond was, to all outward appearances, unbreakable, woven with threads of deep affection and shared memories, family vacations to the Outer Banks, holiday traditions by the fireplace, the countless small moments that forge an enduring connection. The first tremor in this seemingly unshakable world arrived not with a bang, but with the sterile, quiet efficiency of a medical diagnosis. Michael, an active and health-conscious individual, had been experiencing persistent fatigue and an unusual susceptibility to infections. His doctor, a thorough and meticulous woman named Dr. Eris Thorne, recommended a comprehensive panel of tests, including a full blood workup. It was routine, she assured him, a precautionary measure. Neither Michael nor his parents gave it much thought. Health scares were a part of life, after all, and they fully expected a simple explanation, perhaps a vitamin deficiency or a minor viral infection. But the results, when they came back, were anything but simple. Dr. Thorne's voice on the phone was measured, professional, yet carried an undertone that sent a chill down Elias's spine. "Mr. Avery," she had begun, "we have some unexpected findings regarding Michael's blood type." Elias, confused, reminded her that Michael's blood type had always been listed as O-negative, a fact he remembered clearly from Michael's childhood medical records and various sports physicals. He himself was a positive and Sarah, B positive. It was a well-understood genetic inheritance. An O-negative child from an A-positive father and a B-positive mother was entirely possible. No cause for alarm there. Yet, Dr. Thorne's next words hung in the air like a discordant note in a familiar melody. "Mr. Avery, the lab results indicate Michael's blood type is AB positive." The silence that followed was deafening. Elias felt the blood drain from his face, his grip tightening on the phone. AB positive? That wasn't right. That couldn't be right. He distinctly remembered the O negative. A cold dread began to seep into his bones. His mind, usually so precise and analytical, raced, trying to reconcile the conflicting information. He mumbled a choked question, something about a lab error. Dr. Thorne, sensing his distress, patiently explained the rigorous verification process, the double checks, the sheer unlikelihood of such a fundamental error. She suggested, gently, that perhaps there had been a misunderstanding or a misremembered detail from years past. But Elias knew. He knew with an unwavering certainty that Michael was O-negative. He had always been O-negative. He relayed the information to Sarah, who reacted with similar disbelief, her brow furrowing in confusion. "AB positive? That's impossible, Elias. He's O-negative just like we've always known." Is the lab mistaken? Her voice was laced with a desperate hope for a simple explanation. They pulled out old medical records, dusty files from Michael's pediatrician, school forms, sports physicals. Each document, meticulously preserved, confirmed it. Michael Avery, blood type O negative. The discrepancy, small as it seemed on the surface, began to gnaw at them, a persistent itch that couldn't be scratched. It was more than just a medical anomaly. It was a crack in the carefully constructed facade of their reality. They consulted another doctor, a family friend who specialized in genetics. He confirmed the immutable laws of inheritance. A child with AB-positive blood could not be born to parents with a positive and B-positive blood types if the child had been genuinely O-negative from birth. The O-negative designation in Michael's old records, if accurate, directly contradicted the new AB-positive finding, and also contradicted the possibility of Elias and Sarah being his biological parents if Michael truly was AB-positive now. One of the blood types had to be wrong. And if the old one was wrong, what did that imply about Michael's parentage? The questions multiplied, each one more unsettling than the last. Was it a clerical error that had persisted for decades? Or something far, far more sinister? The thought, barely a whisper in the back of Elias's mind, began to grow louder, echoing with a chilling clarity. What if Michael wasn't their biological son? It was a notion so preposterous, so devastating, that it felt like a betrayal just to entertain it. Yet, the facts, cold and unyielding, pointed to an undeniable inconsistency. The joy and warmth that usually filled the Avery home began to dissipate, replaced by a tense, suffocating silence. Every glance at Michael now carried a hidden weight. Every shared memory suddenly tinged with an agonizing uncertainty. The foundation of their world, once so solid, was beginning to crumble, revealing the terrifying abyss beneath. And the journey into that abyss had only just begun. The truth, they would soon discover, was far more shocking than any of them could have ever imagined. The initial shock of Michael's blood-type revelation had begun to curdle into a chilling dread within the Avery household. The easy laughter and comfortable silences that once defined their home had been replaced by a strained quiet, punctuated only by the rustle of old papers as Elias and Sarah frantically searched for answers that seemed to vanish with each new discovery. Elias, the methodical architect, found himself meticulously re-examining every memory, every photograph, every official document, searching for a misplaced detail, a forgotten truth. Sarah, the warm and effervescent teacher, felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach, a constant companion to the ache in her chest. She found herself watching Michael more closely, her gaze lingering, searching his familiar features for something unfamiliar, a flicker of a stranger within the son she adored. It was a tormenting, self-inflicted torture, born of a desperate need to understand. Michael, oblivious to the storm brewing around him, noticed the change, of course. His parents, usually so open and communicative, had grown distant, their conversations hushed, their eyes often meeting in worried glances that excluded him. He tried to brush it off as work stress, or perhaps a minor marital tiff, but the atmosphere was too heavy, too persistent. He questioned them, gently at first, then with growing concern. Elias would mumble something about financial matters, Sarah about a difficult week at school. But their explanations felt hollow, a flimsy curtain drawn across a gaping wound. Michael, sensitive and intuitive, felt the emotional chill, sensing an unspoken secret that was slowly suffocating the warmth of their family. He began to feel isolated, adrift in his own home. The decision to pursue a DNA test was a quiet, agonizing one, spoken in hushed tones after Michael had left for work. It felt like a betrayal, a brutal vivisection of their family's core, but the alternative, living with this agonizing uncertainty, was simply unbearable. They chose a reputable, discreet lab and arranged for the samples to be taken. The wait that followed was an eternity compressed into a mere 2 weeks. Every phone call, every email notification, sent their hearts lurching into their throats. Sleep became a luxury, their nights filled with restless tossing and turning, haunted by fragmented memories and terrifying what-ifs. Elias imagined elaborate conspiracies, medical mix-ups, or even some bizarre, long-forgotten family secret. Sarah, meanwhile, wrestled with a primal, gut-wrenching fear that the boy she had nurtured, loved, and raised as her own might not be hers at all. When the email arrived, bearing the subject line "Confidential Results," it felt like the entire world held its breath. Elias, his hand trembling, opened the attachment. The words on the screen, stark and unambiguous, hit them like a physical blow. The report stated, with scientific certainty, that Michael Avery shared no biological markers with Elias and Sarah Avery consistent with a parent-child relationship. There it was. Undeniable. Unrefutable. The room spun. The carefully constructed reality of their lives imploded in that instant. Sarah let out a strangled sob, her hand flying to her mouth, as if to stifle a scream that threatened to tear through the very foundations of their home. Elias felt a dizzying wave of nausea, his vision blurring. This wasn't a clerical error. This wasn't a forgotten genetic anomaly. This was a complete, absolute, and utterly devastating severance of the biological ties they had always believed in. Michael was not their son. The boy they had raised, cherished, loved beyond measure, was a stranger. The immediate aftermath was a blur of raw emotion. Grief, confusion, anger, and a profound sense of betrayal washed over them. How could this have happened? Where did Michael come from? And who was he, truly? The memories, once so comforting, now twisted into grotesque parodies. Every lullaby Sarah had sung, every scraped knee Elias had patched up, every proud moment at a school play or graduation. They were all suddenly tainted, viewed through the prism of this shocking, undeniable truth. It was as if their entire shared history had been built on a foundation of sand, and now the tide had come in. The realization brought with it a cascade of chilling implications. If Michael wasn't theirs, then who was? And why had they been given someone else's child? The most logical, yet most terrifying, scenario began to form in Elias's mind. A baby swap at the hospital. But that sounded like something out of a sensationalist movie, not their quiet, respectable lives. Yet, what other explanation could there be for such a monumental deception? They remembered the hospital, St. Jude's Medical Center, a reputable facility in a neighboring town. Sarah had given birth there, a difficult labor, but ultimately a joyous one. They recalled the hazy days in the maternity ward, the fatigue, the overwhelming emotions of new parenthood. Had something insidious occurred during that vulnerable time? Had their precious son been exchanged for another, perhaps inadvertently, perhaps deliberately? The thought was an icy finger tracing down their spines. The more they thought about it, the more insidious the possibilities became. Was it a mistake, negligence, or something far more sinister, a deliberate act shrouded in mystery? The world outside their windows, once a familiar landscape of neat lawns and friendly neighbors, now seemed to mock their shattered reality. How could they face Michael? How could they tell him that the parents he had loved and trusted for 28 years were not his biological kin? The very thought was unbearable. This secret, this devastating truth, was a monstrous weight pressing down on their souls, threatening to crush them. They were adrift in a sea of questions, with no compass to guide them, and the shores of their familiar life had vanished behind them. The silence in the house was no longer just strained. It was deafening, filled with the echoes of a past that was now irrevocably broken and a future that felt terrifyingly uncertain. The true, painful unraveling of their lives had just begun. The raw, gut-wrenching pain of the DNA results lingered in the Avery home like a toxic fog, poisoning every shared glance, every whispered word. Elias and Sarah moved through their days in a daze, their minds relentlessly replaying the words of the report. Michael, their son, their pride, their joy, was biologically a stranger. The knowledge was a physical weight, pressing down on their chests, making it hard to breathe. They knew they couldn't keep this secret from him indefinitely, but the thought of shattering his world, of revealing such a profound untruth about his very identity, felt more unbearable than their own pain. The weight of their unspoken secret began to manifest in subtle, yet undeniable ways. Sarah, usually so meticulous with her appearance, found herself neglecting her silvering blonde hair, letting it fall unkempt around her shoulders. Her vibrant eyes, once full of warmth, now held a haunted, distant look. Elias, whose strong, steady hands had always been capable and confident, now found them trembling at the slightest provocation. His architectural sketches, usually precise and flowing, became hesitant, fragmented. They spent countless hours poring over old photo albums, each smiling picture of Michael from infancy to adulthood now a cruel reminder of the biological chasm that lay beneath the surface. Was that truly Michael's smile, or the smile of a child they thought was theirs? The very act of looking at him, the beloved young man who walked and talked and laughed in their home, became an excruciating exercise in cognitive dissonance. Their desperation led them back to the source, St. Jude's Medical Center. Elias, leveraging his connections as a prominent architect who had consulted on several hospital expansions, managed to secure an appointment with the head of medical records, a stern but seemingly sympathetic woman named Ms. Eleanor Vance. Sarah accompanied him, her face pale, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. They sat in Ms. Vance's sterile office, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow on their strained faces, and laid out their unbelievable story. The blood type discrepancy, the shocking DNA results, the absolute certainty that their Michael was not their biological son. Ms. Vance listened with a professional, unreadable expression. Her gaze, however, sharpened when Elias mentioned the specific date of Michael's birth, nearly 3 decades ago. She typed furiously on her computer, navigating through archaic digital archives and cross-referencing paper records. The silence in the office stretched, thick with tension, punctuated only by the click of the keyboard and the rapid turning of pages. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she paused, her fingers hovering over a line on her screen. "Mr. and Mrs. Avery," she began, her voice carefully modulated. "I show that on the day your son, Michael, was born, there was indeed another infant born within a very short time frame of your child." A flicker of hope, agonizingly fragile, sparked in Elias's chest. Another infant? Was it a simple, tragic mix-up? Was it a boy or a girl? Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ms. Vance's eyes, usually so composed, softened almost imperceptibly with a hint of sorrow. "It was a boy, Mrs. Avery, born just 2 hours after your Michael. And there's something else." She hesitated, as if searching for the right words to deliver a blow. "This other infant, he was taken by Child Protective Services shortly after birth. His mother, she was listed as having severe complications during delivery and unfortunately, she passed away within days of giving birth. There was no father listed, and no other next of kin present at the hospital to claim him." The air in the room grew heavy, thick with unspoken tragedy. A baby born at the same time, unclaimed, motherless. The pieces, though horrifying, were beginning to fall into place. "And his blood type?" Elias pressed, his voice hoarse. Ms. Vance consulted her screen again. "His blood type was documented as O negative. O negative. The blood type Michael was supposed to have. The blood type listed in all his childhood records. It was a cruel, agonizing twist of fate." Elias closed his eyes, a wave of dizzying clarity washing over him. It was almost too neat, too perfectly tragic. Could their O-negative son, the one they believed was theirs, have been swapped with an AB-positive baby whose biological mother had tragically died, and who had no one to claim him? The sheer, horrifying possibility hung in the air, cold and undeniable. Ms. Vance, sensing their unspoken realization, continued, her voice lower now. "The child was transferred to a state facility for adoption after a few weeks. His name at birth, as recorded, was Baby Boy Doe, but was later given the name Ethan, and adopted by a family in Northern California a few months later." Northern California. The name, Ethan, echoed in the silent office. Elias and Sarah looked at each other, their faces etched with a profound, shared understanding and a fresh wave of grief. The child they had raised for 28 years, the child they thought was theirs, had been exchanged with a baby who, in a cruel twist of fate, had been left alone in the world, orphaned at birth. The implications were staggering. Their Michael, their precious son, had been living a life they now realized was a beautiful, devastating lie, built upon a foundation of another family's unspeakable tragedy. And somewhere, across the country, their biological son, Ethan, was living a life they knew nothing about, having been raised by strangers, perhaps never knowing his true origins. The drive home was silent, the landscape blurring outside the car windows. The comfortable suburbs of Connecticut, once a symbol of their stable existence, now felt alien. Their own home a repository of a secret too immense to contain. They had sought answers, and they had found them, but the truth was a double-edged sword, slicing through their carefully constructed lives, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and profound sorrow. Who was truly responsible for this? Was it a simple, horrifying mistake by overworked hospital staff? Or something darker, more calculated, exploiting a vulnerable infant who had no one to speak for him? The answers they craved were still elusive, hidden beneath layers of time and institutional records. Their journey was far from over. It had merely taken a darker, more complex turn. The path ahead was fraught with emotional peril, a quest not just for truth, but for two lives irrevocably intertwined by a single, catastrophic moment decades ago. The revelation of Ethan, their biological son, living somewhere in Northern California, struck Elias and Sarah with a new, profound wave of sorrow and a desperate, almost primal urge. The tears they had shed in Ms. Vance's office were only the beginning. Now, the grief was intertwined with a fierce determination. They had to find him. But how could they, when the very act of seeking one son meant facing the unthinkable truth with the other? The internal battle was agonizing. How do you tell the child you've raised, the child who calls you mom and dad, that his entire life story is built on a monumental tragic error? They agonized for days, the silence in their home a heavy blanket of unspoken words. Michael, now acutely aware of the palpable tension, finally confronted them. His voice, usually so confident, was tinged with worry. "Mom, Dad, what's going on? You've been so distant. Is everything okay?" The directness of his question, the genuine concern in his eyes, broke through their carefully constructed silence. Sarah looked at Elias, and in that moment, a silent agreement passed between them. They couldn't lie to him any longer. The truth, however painful, had to come out. It was Elias who spoke first, his voice rough with emotion, his gaze steady on Michael's face. He started with the fatigue, the doctor's visit, the initial blood test. He described the confusion, the disbelief, the old records. Sarah, tearfully, filled in the gaps, talking about the gnawing doubt, the agonizing decision to get a DNA test. As Elias delivered the final, devastating blow, that the DNA results confirmed he wasn't their biological son, Michael's face drained of color. He stood there utterly still, as if struck by lightning, the air knocked from his lungs. The world, as he knew it, shattered into a million pieces around him. The initial reaction was a terrifying cocktail of shock, anger, and profound sadness. Michael screamed, he wept, he raged. He accused them of lying, of making it up, of a cruel joke. How could the people he trusted most in the world, the anchors of his existence, tell him such a monstrous untruth? The pain in his eyes was unbearable for Elias and Sarah to witness. They sat with him for hours, holding him, letting him rail, offering what comfort they could amidst the debris of their shared past. They explained everything they knew, the hospital records, the other baby, Ethan. They showed him the documents, the cold, scientific proof that shattered his identity. Gradually, as the initial storm subsided, a quiet, hollow despair settled over Michael. His questions, when they finally came, were heartbreaking. Who am I? Where do I belong? Was my whole life a lie? It was a slow, arduous process of healing, fraught with fragile moments and immense emotional challenges. But Michael, remarkably, possessed a profound inner strength. After the initial shock, his innate curiosity, the very trait that defined him, began to surface. He started asking about Ethan. Who was he? What was his life like? The idea of a biological brother, a parallel existence he never knew, was a strange, compelling pull. Elias and Sarah, emboldened by Michael's burgeoning desire for connection, explained their plan to discreetly search for Ethan, not to disrupt his life, but to understand, to perhaps, one day, connect. Their search for Ethan was a painstaking process, stretching over months, utilizing private investigators and old hospital records, piecing together fragments of information. It led them to a quiet community in Northern California, to a family named the Harrisons, seemingly ordinary people who had adopted a baby boy nearly 3 decades ago. The day Elias and Sarah finally saw a photo of Ethan Harrison, a successful environmental lawyer with a kind smile and eyes that strikingly resembled Elias's own, a collective gasp escaped their lips. He wasn't just a name on a piece of paper, he was real, their son. The decision of how to approach Ethan was agonizing. They consulted therapists, ethicists, and legal experts. The consensus was clear: caution, respect, and above all, putting Ethan's well-being first. They couldn't just drop this bombshell into his life. So they decided to write him a letter. A long, heartfelt letter, explaining everything, offering proof, but leaving the choice entirely up to him. They included a secure, discreet contact method, assuring him there was no pressure, only a desire to share a truth that profoundly affected them all. The wait was unbearable, a mirror of the 2 weeks they had waited for Michael's DNA results. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. They prepared themselves for silence, for rejection. Then, one Tuesday morning, an email arrived, from an address they didn't recognize. The subject line simply read, Ethan Harrison. Their hearts pounded. He had read it. He had chosen to respond. The contents of that email, and the subsequent conversations, were a testament to the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Ethan, though undeniably shocked, was also incredibly open. He had always felt a subtle sense of disconnect, a quiet curiosity about his origins that he had never fully explored. The pieces of his life, too, suddenly clicked into place. He learned of his birth mother's tragic death, of being left alone, of the mix-up that had given him a family he loved, but one that was not his by blood. He was grieving, too, for the life he could have had, for the mother he never knew. The story, of course, isn't neatly tied up with a bow. It's a messy, beautiful tapestry of interwoven lives. Michael and Ethan, once strangers, embarked on a tentative, emotionally charged journey of getting to know each other. There were awkward video calls, hesitant questions, and then, gradually, a deepening connection, a shared history that was both tragic and miraculously hopeful. Elias and Sarah found themselves navigating the complex dynamics of loving 2 sons, one by blood, one by a bond so strong it transcended biology. This story, the story of Michael, Ethan, Elias, and Sarah Avery, isn't just about a shocking discovery. It's about the very essence of family, the messy, beautiful, sometimes painful ways we define connection. It's about the truth, no matter how unsettling, eventually finding its way to the surface. It's about the incredible strength of the human heart to adapt, to forgive, and to love fiercely in the face of unimaginable circumstances. It's a testament to the fact that family isn't always defined by blood, but by the unwavering ties of love, sacrifice, and shared humanity. If this incredible journey, this raw, emotional roller coaster, has touched you, if it's made you think about the hidden stories that might exist all around us, then please take a moment. Like this video, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales of the unexpected. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next story. Thank you for being here, for sharing in this profound journey with us. Until next time, stay curious and cherish the connections that truly matter.